are reports with high kill counts in this material. For example, a single report taking place on August the 9th, 2006 has a kill count of 181. One wounded, 0 detained. What is the circumstance behind that report? Well, it's part of Operation Medusa, but the full circumstance is not yet known. According to the report, an AC-130 gunship is a cargo plane which has been fitted out with cannons all along one side, circled around for 3 hours and killed 62 of those people. If we add up all those deaths in that report, we get about 80. The deaths of the other 100 are still unexplained. There are many reports like that. They look very suspicious, but the full details are not yet explained. We can see the behaviour of Task Force 373, a Special Forces assassination squad, a kill or capture squad, involved in pursuing the JPEL, the Joint Priority Effects List, a euphemism for the US assassination list, kill or capture list in Afghanistan. There are many events associated with that, some that resulted in the deaths of one that resulted in the deaths of 7 children, and others that resulted in the deaths of a number of other innocents. For that list, we can also see how people get on the list. They seem to be recommended by regional governors in Afghanistan or by intelligence authorities, often with, it appears, little evidence and, of course, no judicial review.
Can you say how you came to cooperate with the New York Times, the Guardian, and the Wikileaks?
So, I mean, that's quite an interesting journalistic story that we managed to pull together these 4 groups, Sunshine Press, Wikileaks, Der Spiegel, New York Times, and the Guardian, to share investigative resources. We shared research stemming out of this material, not final stories, but research and computational techniques to deal with this material as equal partners, with the exception that we control the embargo date and could move that back and forth. I spoke to Nick Davies of The Guardian. He was instrumental in starting to broker that arrangement, and then we did it at an editor-editor basis between the Alan Rosberger and the editor of Der Spiegel and the editor of the New York Times.
Julie, that's a very quick question. The MOD this morning are saying that even they aren't able to verify much of these documents. I'm sure the US would probably say the same about other documents too at this stage. How can you be sure that what's placed up on the internet is accurate? And if some of it is not, doesn't that eat into your legitimacy with Wikileaks? Because it's wrong information and therefore it's up there.
If some of that information was inaccurate, that would eat into our legitimacy, quite correct. However, we have never released misdescribed material, and I don't expect this case to be any exception.
Some people are suggesting that lots of the intelligence, or some of the intelligence, it's difficult to quantify, came from low level, came from people who are biased against different
absolutely
groups. And so how can you rely on that? How can you allow people to read information and placed up there as if it were truths, as far as you're concerned?
When we publish material, what we say is the document as we describe it is true. We publish CIA reports all the time that are legitimate CIA reports. That doesn't mean the CIA is telling the truth. Similarly, with this material, there is reporting from military units of various kinds in Afghanistan, reporting from US embassies across the world about matters relevant to Afghanistan, reporting from informers in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Those are legitimate reports. It doesn't mean that the contents are true.
So people should exercise caution.
People should exercise caution, and I'll give you some examples of the ways in which they should exercise caution. And we, in fact, do this. If you go to wardiary.wikileaks.org, you will see how to read the material report. You will find that US military units, when self-reporting, of course, often speak in exculpatory language, redefine civilian casualties as insurgent casualties, downplay the number of casualties. And we know this by comparing these reports to the public record for where there has been comprehensive investigations. So as an example, Kunduz, Gorani, for the Kunduz report, we see that the initial report from the field was 56 insurgents killed, no civilians killed, but we know from later reportage investigation, in fact, most of the people killed were civilians, and there was some 100 and something. But when military units report on other military units, they're more likely to be frank. On other US military units. When they report on other allied units that are not from the US military, for example on the Poles or on the Brits, they're even more likely to tell the truth. And of course, when they are reporting on the Taliban, then all the evil comes out. Similarly, when we look at reporting from informers, we can see sometimes completely outlandish claims. They just don't hold water. It will sometimes say that reporting is the result of the source being paid. It will sometimes, there's a rating system that Marines intelligence will give these sources how reliable they think they are. So that is the opinion of Marines intelligence as to Marines G2 intelligence, how reliable the source is and how much you should take away from it. But just like dealing with any source, you should exercise some common sense. That doesn't mean you should close your eyes.
Julian, what have you learned about the Germans?
Bill Lady from ITV News. One of the statements that White House made immediately with regard to the Pakistani links, the guidance was, the opening sentence is, I don't think anyone who follows this issue will find it surprising. And I suppose that's what I found about this whole thing. The detail is stunning in the 91,000 documents or something. And yet, in the end, there is so much that one doesn't find entirely surprising. I wonder if you've concluded that at the end of all this, and following on from my colleague about reliability, do you find it in any way suspicious that the documents that you've got here are all labelled secret but not top secret? They're all fairly low-level field reports. They come from junior officers. The only guy in jail is a private first class. I mean, have you any feeling that perhaps you have reason to doubt the reliability of these documents?
We have no reason to doubt the reliability of these documents. We should say what they don't include. They don't include top secret reports. They don't include most reports from US Special Forces. They don't include reports by the CIA. They don't include reports by other coalition partners. However, they do include the majority of regular US Army activity. And where regular US Army overlaps in the activities of other forces in Afghanistan, it includes reports about their activities. So when Task Force 373, the Special Forces Assassination Squad, is involved in a raid, it will often partner with regular US Army forces, and so there are descriptions of its activities. Similarly, when the CIA is engaged in a raid, or US Army bomb squad needs to be called in, or something like this, you'll see OGA, other government agency,